And that's Chiara down there in the middle. And we've also got our resident guy blogger at from glamour.com, Ben Kasoy. So say hi, guys.
Hi.
Hey there.
So today we're going to be talking about dating and relationships and going over some questions that all of us hear a lot as, dating experts and bloggers and, things people are always wanting to know about. So let's start with a question we get all the time, which is, how do I get guys to notice me? And I think we'll start with Ben on this one because he is a guy, so he can tell us what he notices about a girl.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think I'm going to give the classic answer that a lot of people give, which is confidence, just exuding confidence. But when a lot of people say that, they don't really give a recipe for finding that confidence because it's easier said than done. So I think for me, it's kind of a two-step process. One, I feel like something a lot of people do is they say, well, I'm having trouble meeting a guy at a bar, and that's sort of like the cookie cutter universal like place to meet people. But I really feel like you are going to exude confidence when you put yourself in a context or in a place where you can show the best of yourself. So for me, I don't feel confident in a bar, and I don't notice girls in a bar because I'm trying to try not to act like an idiot myself. So find places that you feel confident, whether that's the gym because you feel like you look good when you're sweaty or something, or if it's at a bookstore, or if it's in a kickball league. Whatever it is, if you go someplace where you can show the best of who you are and be around people with common interests, I think that confidence will sort of show itself organically. And the second thing is that I think girls give guys too much credit. I think guys are far less assertive and confident in themselves than you think they are. And especially these days, I think being assertive and being forward is something that's really sexy and really attractive. So find a place where you can be confident and show that.
Chiara, your thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree with Ben in terms of girls giving guys a lot of credit for being forward and for initiating. The question, how do I get guys to notice me, is sort of puts you in a passive position, like you're just going to wait around and hope that that cute guy that you see will pay attention to you magically. The way to get guys to notice you is really to put to just go up to them and talk to them. I know that sounds terrifying, but then you can do lesser degrees of that. Make eye contact with them, smile at them, engage with them. It's very simple. Just go up and break the ice and laugh, and as Ben said, be confident. And another thing that I think sort of gets in the way sometimes is that girls think of it as like, oh, I have to go like hit on this guy, or I have to have some sort of like a pickup line, because that's traditionally how we think of like starting something romantic, like a guy coming up to a girl at a bar and saying something nice. It doesn't have to be like that. You can talk to a guy the way you would make a conversation with anybody. And if you're someone who has trouble initiating conversations, then start out small. Don't just start out with guys that you're interested in romantically. Like when you're out and about, when you're at a coffee shop or at a bookstore or at the gym or at a bar, start talking to anybody who's around there, just so you can get more used to breaking the ice and feeling confident and making conversations with strangers. And then that will segue into eventually feeling more confident approaching men.
Yeah, I really like that about sort of putting you in the driver's seat and not just passively waiting for guys to notice you. But I think going back to Ben's point about confidence, I have always noticed that my friends that do tend to get the guys who notice them the most are the ones who aren't wondering, how do I get a guy to notice me? They're just out there being themselves, not, trying to do something because they think it's what a guy will notice. They're just doing something because that's what they like to do and that's what they enjoy. So I think, yeah, that's what we all think, is just be your cool self.
Right. We asked for the book, we asked a lot of guys, like, what makes you notice a woman when you're out and about at a party or at a bar? And one thing that they all said was, big ones were laughter, people who are smiling, people who look like they're having fun. These are all behavioral things. This is very easy to accomplish. It doesn't matter so much or as much what you look like or what sort of like hair tossing you're pulling off to get a guy's attention. Really can be as simple as just having a good time and having fun and seeming approachable in that sense.
Yeah, I think it's easy to think of things in terms of men and women and like we want different things, but and not to say men and women aren't different because they are, but it's also like, well, we're all humans. Think about what you would notice in a guy. It's the same things you just said, Kiara. Like you're going to notice a guy who's laughing and having a good time and who is confident.
Right. And another thing, again, going off of what Ben said in terms of guys being nervous to approach women too, is I know a lot of guys who will only approach a woman or ask a woman out if he's like 100% sure that she will say yes. If it's only 98, then it's too big of a rejection risk. I mean, that's a little bit of an extreme, but the point is, if you like someone, you also have to send really clear signals. I think we're all a lot more subtle than we actually think we are. I think we think like, oh, I'm being so forward. But
is that how you feel, Ben?
No, I think you make a great point. One, guys are literally terrified of rejection. Like our masculinity, our worthiness, like our attractiveness, like all on the line. And the other thing is that we're kind of dumb. Like guys are not always perceptive in terms of picking up these hints and these subtle things. So something that you do, like Kiara, you're talking about like a hair flip or something, like these are not things that guys are necessarily even noticing. So make it really as obvious as possible for us. I really, really appreciate that. So yeah, just like help us out. Like help us out here.
Okay,
So,
that's a good segue to this next question that I want to ask, which is people who want to know why their guy friend won't see them as more. So maybe, Ben, you want to pick up where you left off. Maybe this is a matter of being too subtle, or it's a case of something more. Why wouldn't a girl's guy friend see her as, potential dating or relationship material?
yeah, I mean it's one of two things. I mean, right, some of it is subtlety, and for some reason, we're all afraid of rejection, and we all want our feelings to be reciprocated. So maybe you're not being forward enough. But then again, that's also an enormous risk, because if you're forward and your feelings, he doesn't have the same feelings, then you've really set yourself up for disappointment. This is a tough one though, honestly, because you can't make any, like there's myth of kind of making someone fall in love with you, or he'll come around and see, I'm right for him, or, if I do this or that. I really think that's not a reality. If he's not into you and the timing isn't right, then that's something, disappointing as it is, that you have to accept. And if it is right and the timing works out later down the line, that's terrific. But I think you just set yourself up for disappointment and frustration trying to force someone to feel a way that they don't necessarily feel.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's difficult because certainly a lot of romances do evolve from friendships naturally. But as Ben said, it's not something that you can force. And if you're a girl who finds herself constantly relegated to the friend zone, like a girl who has tons of guy friends who never, for whatever reason, it never quite develops into a romantic relationship, I think that you can look at your own sort of behavioral patterns and see what you're doing when you first meet guys that sort of ushers them into platonic friendship versus a romantic relationship. And one thing that girls do, I think, is make themselves super like goofy and self-deprecating when they first meet guys. Is almost like a bashful flirting method instead of being outwardly forward. Again, this is what I think a lot of women have, a fear of being too forward or desperate or whatever. And that sort of almost playground flirtiness of like punch on the arm, like, I don't know, that was a horrible example of anything, but that sort of, makes guys think of you in one way, like, oh yeah, she's great, like she's a friend, versus, oh, this is a woman that I am sexually or romantically interested in. Another thing that women do, I think, is become like super available for their guy friends. And there's something I call filler girlfriend, which a lot of women find themselves being, which is when their guy friends are between relationships, they sort of step up to the plate and become the person the guys always call when they're bored, the plus ones to events. And they don't have anyone to go to an event or a wedding with, the person who's always around and always available. And then when the guy gets another girlfriend, like she's again relegated to the friend who he calls sometimes. And I think it's important, if you like someone and you know you like someone, really set a boundary for yourself and say, okay, if this isn't a romantic relationship for me, how much am I going to be okay just being the friend? Because as much time and energy as you put in being this guy's friend, it's time and energy that you're not finding someone else who actually is romantically interested in you. So I think it's important to don't let yourself be like the best friend for all these guys, especially if you develop stronger feelings and they're not reciprocated.
I think that is a good segue into another question we have, which maybe follows nicely to the idea of filler girlfriends, which is it really possible to be just friends with benefits? People ask that question all the time. My personal thought on that is that it's not. That's, at least in my, like, knowing with my personality, I don't think I'd be able to do it, but maybe you guys have different opinions. I think it's going to be a situation like Chiara was saying with a filler girlfriend, where, you know, if you're friends with benefits, maybe you kind of get into a routine where you're hanging out and you're hooking up and it starts to feel like a relationship, even if you really think you don't have feelings for the person. I think you're still going to be hurt when, you know, one of you does get into a relationship and the pattern changes. So personally, I think it's a bad idea, but maybe you guys think differently.
Yeah, I think it is possible to be friends with benefits, but you have to be realistic, and sort of with two caveats. One, it's not sustainable, and two, you have to. It only works when you're on the same page. So it only works at certain times for a very finite period of time. And I've had lots and lots of friends with benefits, but not. But first of all, not at the same time, and also for only sort of spurts of time. So, a therapist once said to me, if the relationship is serious, then the sex can be casual. And what I mean by that is, this has happened to me a lot of times, that I will be genuinely really, really good friends with a girl. Like, we'll be, you know, friends with nothing romantic, only platonic, for a year or 2 years or 5 years. And we sort of establish a really strong and honest foundation of friendship and valuing each other beyond anything romantic or physical. And when you have that sort of as a foundation and as a rock, then if the stars align at some point down the road and you're both single and you're both potentially romantically interested, then you can hook up and have these benefits, but only because you were still friends before that, and you can still be friends after that. So your relationship has to be based on the friendship first, and that friendship has to be stable enough to withstand something romantic or sexual, and then be able to go back into the friendship part. Because friends with benefits, lots of times, I think, is a misnomer. Okay, so lots of times someone you have benefits with isn't really a friend. It's just someone that you haven't hooked up with yet. So maybe you were pretending to be friends, or you convinced yourself you were friends, but really you were just interested in them the whole time, or they were just interested in you. Lots of times friends with benefits isn't a real thing. It's just someone that hasn't happened yet. And the other thing is that, so it only happens at certain times, and then it's also unsustainable. So at some point, because you're kind of in this gray area, like you haven't made a commitment to being in a relationship, but you're also not just friends, the gray area is nice, but the circumstances are bound to change, and your feelings are bound to change in one direction or another. And if you think you can have that last a long time, you're kidding yourself. So you just have to be prepared to anticipate changes in circumstances or feelings, and be ready to have that relationship evolve into something that's either a committed relationship or nothing at all.
Chiara, do you have anything you wanted to add to that one? Okay, maybe we don't have Kiara for the moment, so we'll switch over to another question. We'll get off the friend track, and let's start talking about online dating profiles. We get asked about that all the time. We write about it all the time. I definitely write about it all the time, complaining about things I think people do wrong that drive me crazy. So we're going to talk about what works and what doesn't in an online dating profile. We were all kind of talking about this earlier, Ben and Kiara and I, and we agreed that sort of a big no-no is anything that is really generic or doesn't tell you a lot about the person, like saying things like I'm funny or I'm nice or I like to travel. We all kind of agree that it's better to be specific and give examples that really show those things about you rather than just saying them. So that's our general thought, and I'm going to let Ben explain his more specific thoughts on that now.
Yeah, I mean, I think you really hit it on the head that you know your experiences and your personality. So when you say I'm adventurous or I live life to the fullest, you know what that means. But if you heard me say that, you would have no idea what that refers to. So Gina, I think you're exactly right. It's about showing, not telling. The other thing I think that's really important on an online dating profile is that, and you know this, from online dating and offline dating, that it's nerve-wracking. It's scary, and you feel insecure, and it's just hard. But I think that the more not only specific, but the more honest and maybe even a little vulnerable you can be on your profile is something that is really attractive. So of course you want to make yourself out to be an appealing, desirable person. But I think maybe doing some things that are a little bit self-deprecating, or some of your shortcomings or flaws or weaknesses in subtle ways shows a guy, hey, I am willing to share some things about myself. And so when I see someone who's willing to be a little bit insecure and a little bit vulnerable, that makes me feel a lot safer and a lot more comfortable sharing those things about myself, not only online, but it also makes me feel safer meeting up with someone offline when I know that that they're willing to give me some insight as to who they are, and can let down those walls even just a smidge to let me in.
And remind me, Ben, how do you feel about duck face pictures in online dating
Oh
profiles?
God, please no duck faces.
No duck faces. We got Kiara back, so Kiara, why don't you give us your take on a few do's or don'ts of online dating profiles?
Okay, cool. So with online dating profiles, I don't know if Ben covered this, but you want to give the person who's reading your profile a sense of what it might be like to actually date you. And the best way to do this is describe a lot of activities you like, TV shows you like, how you spend your weekend. So when they're reading your profile, they can really get a clear picture of like, okay, if I went out with this girl, or if I went out with this guy, here's probably what we would do on weekends. Here's what we do on Sunday mornings. Here's what we'd watch on Netflix at 2 a.m. The more detail, the better, for a lot of reasons. First of all, the more detail, the more you set yourself apart from the other hundreds of profiles that he's maybe browsed that day. Also, the more details you provide, the better icebreakers you're giving him to message you with. It's really, really hard sometimes to come up with something to say to someone, even if you really like their profile and they seem cool. You need to get that hook for them to grab onto and message you and say, oh, I saw in your profile that you love Arrested Development. Are you so excited for the new season? What do you think it's going to be like? Anything like that.
Good one. So
and
in
also
some,
no duck
oh,
face.
go ahead.
And
Go
also
ahead.
no duck face and no mirror self-portraits.
All right, so in summary, be detailed, talk about yourself, don't take duck face pictures.
Yeah.
I think that's going to wrap up our hangout for today. Come back to glamour.com and check out Ben and I every day, and also check out an article from Kiara in this month's Glamour magazine, and don't forget about her book, Modern Dating: A Field Guide. Thanks for hanging out with us, everyone. Bye.